All right, welcome to episode 2, season 1 of the Blunt Force Conservative Podcast. This is our first attempt at live streaming. So hopefully our plethora of subscribers, I think we've got about 9 or 10 right now, just from the first episode, are set up with us on YouTube. We are going to explore some other streaming channels where we can get it out on X and we can get it out on Rumble. Before I bring on the guests for today, I want to thank Gary Heasley and Chris Piotta for being on with me last week. We got some good response when we shared that around through our contacts. But I wanted to give you a little behind the scenes of something that happened at the FBI with me 26 years ago, just a couple of weeks ago. So this is what's affectionately known as Orders Night. And you'll see a good friend of mine, Chris Starrett, in the middle of the screen. I don't know who the assistant director was of training division at the time, but this is when I got notified that I was actually going to be going to Washington field office. So this is a short clip. And Mr. Producer, can you bring that up? Chris Starrett is actually 24 years old. He turned 24 at the academy.
Mississippi. Hope to go somewhere in the southeast, probably Birmingham, Memphis. Where I think I'm going, based on the last two guys, the class from Alabama, I'm probably going to New York. I'm going to what?
So the way that happens, and you can take that video off and you can see our guest coming up here. I want to welcome Kim George. She is a retired FBI supervisory special agent. She is located out in the great state of Arizona, and she is she has been active in politics. She has run for Congress before. But Kim, does that remind you, was it similar to when you got your orders? It was a bag up front. You just reach your hand in and grab out like you were picking a lottery ticket out?
Yeah, but you forgot the drunk blindfolded monkey in the back of the room that was throwing the dart. That was actually that's how you got your office of assignment. So no, that brings back memories.
Yeah. Now, did you guys do what we did? We all put, there were 41 left after at least one dropped out and a couple got kicked out because they couldn't pass the fit test. Back then, I guess the fit test was a big thing. Uh, but did you guys put some money in the pot, and whoever got the worst pick was going to get the pot?
We did.
Do you
We
remember who
did.
got the pot in your class and how much it was?
I don't remember how much it was, but it was a guy who had 5 young children, and he was from Hawaii, and they sent him to New York City.
Oh, tough man.
I
So he
know.
needed, well, you want to, you know who got the $410 out of our pot? It was me.
Really?
I had the worst pick. Yeah, my wife filled out the dream sheet, and it's for those that haven't been in the FBI, back then there were 56 field offices. I think there's 55 now. You rank them 1 to 56, and with 56 being the worst, of course, with 56 with me it was like New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, places like that. My wife filled it out, and she went in concentric circles, starting with Birmingham and working her way out. But I had the worst pick out of everybody in the class going to Washington field office, and I got the $410. And there's another inside baseball for people that have never been in the FBI. It's similar to a college environment. You don't have frats or anything like that, but you do have this thing called the boardroom. Uh, I don't know what it looks different now. The last time I saw it was a couple of years ago when I made a visit down there. But you can go up, you can get beer and sandwiches and things like that. It's kind of just a little pub. And back then it was upstairs, away from where the cafeteria was. But yeah, I bought a lot of beer for our class that night. I think I may have pocketed $100 out of it. So a lot of changes at the FBI. When's the last time that you were back at the FBI Academy where you actually saw what it, saw the inside?
Let's see. I retired in 2019, I think probably 2016 or 17. So it's
Okay.
been a while.
Had they already done a lot of renovation by that time?
Yes, they had. Yeah, I took a ton of photos because I knew it would probably be my last time back before I retired. So yeah, they done quite a bit of renovations. It looked nice. I mean, it was the same, but it just looked like it had a little bit of a makeover. That was fresh.
Had they already moved the FBI store downstairs when you first walked in?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah, that
that was
that
amazing.
yeah, that was the biggest change for me because I hadn't been there. Goodness, I think the last time I went to the FBI Academy for any type of in-service training or even for a visit was maybe 2008. Oh no, 2011, maybe 10 or 11.
Hmm.
Whenever
Hmm.
I went to the hostage negotiation school, the 2 week course, there was the last time I was at the academy. So when I went, it was totally different to me. I mean, everything had moved around, and um, I went in 2023 as a contractor. I had a badge to get there. It's hard to get to now. You can't just
Hmm.
when I was at Washington Field Office, when we would go to firearms, there were back ways, back roads that you could get into the FBI Academy. You didn't have to necessarily go through the main gate. So trying to get through the checkpoints for the U.S. military and then get to the FBI Academy was a task.
Yeah.
Well, with all of those changes, I'm glad to see some of the things are starting to come back that happened when you and I were in, which with Director Free, I don't know if I ever heard of him missing a graduating class of
Yeah.
showing up for one.
Or
And he
run.
oh a
Or
run. Yeah,
run.
well,
Yeah.
the run was usually it was the next class to graduate, wasn't it? He would come down and do the
Hmm.
5K
Hmm.
run.
Hmm.
Uh funny story about that one. One of my classmates, Bill Beersdorf, he is from Alabama like me. He is big old country boy. And we go on the 3.2 mile run with Director Free, and Free was a runner. And uh, when we finish up, we hit the showers, and Director Free hit the showers with us. And I don't know what it looked like on the women's side, but on the men's side, it was, there weren't any stalls or anything. It's just a bunch of shower heads on each side, and you just kind of go up there and stand. And we're in there showering. Of course, the director's in there, and Bill walks up and engages in conversation with Director Free. Both of them standing there stark naked. Like this is we
Awkward.
yeah, it was I haven't talked to Bill in a number of years, but joking around with him, Director Free, I guess, had a good sense of humor. Like, okay, here I am. Free's about my height, so he's not a big guy, and
Right.
Bill Beard was like 6'2", just a big old country boy standing there naked, talking to him in the shower. That was
I don't want
funny.
to say I can picture that because I'm trying not to picture it, but I have a funny story too. So I wasn't, a fast runner, but by the time I graduated, I had improved considerably. But still, he was a runner, like you said. So he led the pack, and so I was, obviously he was already at the finish line, and when I came across, he had his hand out, and I thought he had his hand out. I've run several marathons in my day and did tries, and you're running, you're slapping people's hands as you're going. So he's standing there with his hand out, and I ran across and I slapped his hand. And and I remember everyone was like, "What did you just do?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And they said, "Kim, you were supposed to stop and shake his hand." And I was like, "Well, I didn't know." Of course, he was just such a great man. He laughed, and because he heard everyone teasing me. But yeah, it was a great memory. He was a good
And
guy.
he
He
is
Best director
still
we've ever
nice.
had.
Still a nice guy. The last time I saw him was 2 weeks before I retired. I had the opportunity to go up for the Private Sector Coordinators Conference up in DC, and they'd have it every year with the DSAC conference, and there was always a lot of executives and stuff there, and I got to see a lot of people that I had known over the years. It was a great, last TDY, and Director Free was there. He was not in good health. He had that
Mm,
accident. I think he may be
right.
blind in one eye right now.
Yeah, messed up an eye pretty bad. Yeah.
I talked to him for a while. It was a great way to just interact with him, and he was so nice just to talk to. he was very candid about some of the things that were going on in the FBI at that time. This was, coming off just a couple years ago, before that, Comey getting fired and just the changes in the FBI. And that back behind me, I guess on this side, you can see my class picture down at the bottom, and that's a target from the indoor shooting range when I was a tour shooter in 99 and 2000. And Director Free was kind enough to sign that we only had the
Hmm.
two kids at the time. So it's autographed to Jake and Josh, best wishes, Louis Free. And it's in ballpoint pen. And a blue pen at that. And anybody that's been inside the FBI knows the significance of having a blue pen.
Mhm.
Uh,
So my
Director
favorite
Hoover,
color pen.
yeah, Director Hoover. Yeah, no blue pens for anybody else. So what are your thoughts right now on what's going on in the FBI with Kash Patel and Dan Bongino putting their mark on it?
Wow. Well, as of the last few days, I mean, there's a lot going on. It's funny, I was thinking, if you think back what director had the most on their plate right after they started, of course, that would be Director Mueller with 9/11. But I don't know, these guys are running a close second. I mean, from the Epstein files to, J6 stuff, to fentanyl coming across, to the illegal immigration. And now on top of that, what we see going on in LA, and I think LA is just the start, unfortunately. They've got their plate full. And I have to say, I think they're doing the best they can, but they're doing a pretty darn good job. You know, I I think for having all this happen so quickly, and this LA thing is it's frightening. It really is. And as well as I do, that this is there's much more beneath the surface when it comes to these riots. It's not just the what we see with the looting and throwing the Molotov cocktails. We're talking about things that the FBI looks like the financing, who's behind this. I mean, there's so much more that goes into it. So I think they're doing a good job, but they've got a full plate. There's no doubt. I feel for them.
Yeah,
I tell you,
I,
they're
I
earning their
like the
pay.
response. Yeah, I like the response. I was on Chris Salcedo's show on Newsmax with our good friend John Nance, and we were talking about what was going on out in Boulder, and that was the response was significant of how quickly they got there. I think they've got a good special agent in charge out there. He'd been there for a little while in the Denver office, and I like the way he comported himself at the press conference. The fact that he had a second press conference and he keeps his media person involved and keep giving people updates. I like that transparency. I like the response that they talked about, going whatever they're going to do out in California. I I think that that being transparent of the FBI's posture there is definitely different than under the past couple of directors. What's some polish that you would give them? What's something? I know we've had our recommendations. We do have, without outing anybody, we do have uh, contact with, let's say, people in Director Patel and Bongino's circle. They do hear some things, some recommendations that we've made, and they've been receptive to them. What's some polish that you would recommend? Some things that you would say, maybe you don't do this, or you should do this.
Well, I think a recommendation, and it didn't come from me, but I think a recommendation was made to, that the director should wear more suits, and we've seen that. Um, he dresses down when it's necessary, but I think he's listening to that advice. And as far as media hits, I know that I heard recently that the director is doing one long form interview a month and one kind of quick hit interview. I'd like to see less of him on the media because he's got bigger fish to fry, in my opinion. I think that's more of the deputy director's job, to be the front man, to be out there, and talking and going on the media. Quite honestly, I'd like to see much less of both of them because they need to be working and have their dedicated people that they know they can trust out there. But if we have to see one of them, I would prefer to see the deputy in front of the camera. A lot of people, I love the transparency, and I think the public is liking this because that's what we lacked in the previous two administrations, especially the last one under Director Ray. So I like that. I like the stuff they're putting out on social media, But at the same time, I think you have to have a balance. And they're just, they just getting their feet wet. They've been in what, a little over 100 days, I think. So, yeah, I think they're off to a really good start. So less TV hits, but we need transparency. The public needs transparency. I mean, you know as well as I do that there's a lack of trust right now because of the mistakes that were made under Comey and Ray. And they, not only are they addressing all the things that are going on in the world around us, but they're also trying to clean up the mess from the previous directors. So, like I said before, they've got a full plate, but polish, just stay, keep pushing that transparency forward. Less media. Um, you know, um, I do like the long form interview. I did listen to the Joe Rogan interview. I thought that was pretty good. I like that. So I think that'd be my best advice. How about you?
Well, I was just forwarding a copy of our stream here out to some friends. Um, I agree with that. I think the media thing's getting to be a bit much. I think it's time to probably scale that back a little bit. The other recommendation that I would give, and I just had this conversation with a couple of people, is uh, my producer Chris, my brother-in-law, is a big proponent of under promise and over deliver. And I get concerned when I hear some exclamations about, you're going to see this, we're going to do that. And if you don't follow through on that, it's going to make it difficult for it's going to make it difficult for you because people are going to they're going to go back and play that. You told us you were going to do this. I think Attorney General Pam Bondi, stepped into that when she gave those big binders out to all of those media influencers. I thought that was a mistake. I
Mhm,
would,
mhm,
yeah, the Joe Rogan interview, I've only heard pieces of it. I've heard the content was really good. I'm still old school. I think you are too. I like to see the director, if he's going to talk about things, behind a podium, taking questions from the media. It doesn't necessarily have to be on. I know it's a new day, but almost everybody's
mhm.
got a podcast. Heck, we've got one right here. But I think that bringing the professionalism back is not just the suit, but carrying that gravitas of it's significant when you're standing behind that podium and just say, hey, I want to make an announcement today. Here's what we're releasing from the Epstein file, and here's why, and here's how we got to
Mhm.
this point. I'd rather do that than give the preamble to getting there. I think
Yeah.
that can set him up for some problems in the future.
No, I agree with you on that. I mean, I definitely agree with that level of professionalism. And I think that's why, we've made recommendations. And I think that that's definitely being heard that agents, I, I came in like, yeah, oh, definitely old school. My supervisor was, a crusty old supervisor. And I went right to the organized crime squad. So I literally, fresh out of the academy, I'm working with all these crusty agents, but it was the greatest opportunity one could have. But back then, I sat right next to a guy. He was one of the handling agents for Donnie Brasco for Pistone. And so, yeah, and he, had the slick back hair and the shiny suit, and the whole 9 yards. And I remember showing up in the squad area and we shared a computer back then. And, of course, he's sizing me up because I'm sitting right next to him. We're kind of, sharing the pod there. And I showed up with my computer that the academy had assigned me, my laptop, and it was a laptop that was great. The thing weighed like 90 pounds, because it was one of those old laptops. And his first comment was, "We didn't get laptops," and that kind of thing. So, but it was no, it was a great opportunity. But we wore suits. Our supervisor was adamant. I don't care where you're going, you're in a suit. Now, of course, if you're digging through trash or something, he'd bend on that, but barely. So yeah, I agree with you on that. But I will say this, you know, like I said before, the public there's a lot of lack of trust, not just with the Bureau, but with our government in general, with our federal agencies. And I think that, Cash doing the Joe Rogan thing, it's a way to, say to people, hey, look, you can trust me. I'm one of you. And I don't mean that it's fake. I mean, I think it's definitely real. He and Rogan are friendly with one another. They were before. I think it's just a way to be kind of a little softer approach and kind of ease into things and just and talk to people and just be a little more relaxed. So that didn't bother me. But no, I agree with you. I do like to see the director, that in that command behind a podium, like you said. But no, I think he's doing good. I really do. I mean, he's professional. He knows what he's talking about. I mean,
Mhm.
he has an amazing resume. When you look at that's what's funny during the confirmation hearings, you hear these people say, "Oh, you have no experience. What qualifies you?" I mean, it was laughable. I mean, to me, he's one of the most credentialed that we've had as far as his breadth of experience. And I think his youth is good to be, younger. He's out there with the agents running. He's getting involved. He's going everywhere, and I think he's is slowly but surely rebuilding the trust from the inside, from the agents that I think, quite honestly, felt lost because they didn't have direction, because they didn't have good leadership. But I think he's also doing a good job of rebuilding that trust on the outside. So.
I agree. And there's some things that are going on that aren't making the news because you've got the riot stuff going on out in LA. I think that's going to be squashed pretty quick. When Trump sends in the National Guard, that's going to be shut down quick. This is not, Biden and all of that. And the other thing is, and that was something that came out this past week about two more special agents in charge, uh, kind of forced into retirement. We're told for various reasons, this is probably not going to work out for you. You're not going to be special agent in charge. One of them, and you and I were talking offline about that, had only been in place since March. So, a decision was made, and you and I both know who makes those decisions. That's a call from Dan Bongino. Bongino's. It's typically the deputy director that lays the hammer down. It's not the director that does that. He calls and says, "You're gone." Um, and I think you're going to slowly see things change. They're kind of figuring out their bearings of who's who. They're getting some of the people in place that they need to further the FBI. There's going to be some allegations that they're doing this out of their own, their own desires, their own fulfillment and stuff. I
Mhm.
think that's where it dovetails back into with the media stuff. Um, when Director Patel first took over one of the events that he went to, he was at a UFC event and they took some pictures on the tarmac and it's kind of like a selfie. That was a bad look. I know we all of us immediately passed that information on as feedback. Don't do this. They haven't done that anymore. I think he's spending more time in DC. I heard he's
Mhm.
barely been out of DC except to visit a field office. And with FBI One, the jet, he can get to wherever he needs to go pretty much in a hurry.
Mhm.
So I think they're both doing a good job. I like the structure. We were talking a little bit about that, the regional concept where you still have the people in the positions that were executive assistant directors, just their responsibilities changed a little bit. They're still responsible for like a couple of divisions, but they also are responsible for a regional area of field offices. So now
Mhm.
you've got one-on-one contact. It's almost like being on a squad and you have contact with your supervisors, your first line of contact. Now, instead of 55 field offices trying to compete for time with the deputy director and the director, they can go directly to whoever their supervisor is and get things, to the front office a little faster. It felt like, I don't know what your thoughts are on this. It felt like when Mueller came in, there were more layers to get to the director's office between us and the field, or
Mhm.
even when you were at headquarters, if you were, a headquarters SSA, a 14, to go through the chain to get to the
Mhm.
director, it just seemed like a lot. Did
Mhm.
you have that same experience?
Yeah, I mean, I recall, of course, I was, fairly new at the time, but no, I do recall that it was more military structure, I would say. Definitely, definitely more difficult. And I also like this structure. I mean, I think it's a good test. And quite honestly, there's different crime problems in different areas of the country. I mean, clearly the southern border and now the northern border. We've a big focus on drug trafficking, a big focus on human smuggling. That's going to be different than the crime problem. And I don't mean generally speaking. I mean when you really get focused, it's going to be different than the crime problem, in the center of the country. So I think having those broken into the geographic areas, I think it's smart. because they can be more, more expertise on their AORs and, the crimes that are more, prevalent in those areas.
So do you like the, we've had this text group that's been around for about 5 going on 6 years now, um, where there were about 5 of us that were in there, and then you passed the test, and we, we invited you in here in the past year. Um, I was talking to somebody about this, about the ability to provide input, feedback, and affect some change. And I don't think necessarily you have to do that by, I mean, I admire the people that go testify before Congress. You kind of are, creating some tension between Congress and the executive branch where you're going directly to them and say, FBI's messed up. Um, it's similar to being in the workplace. If you were to go to if you're on a squad and you went to the assistant special agent in charge and said, listen, I think the squad's messed up. The ASAC's going to ask you, did you talk to the supervisor about it yet? And if you
Mhm.
haven't, then he's going to say, go talk to them about it. I
Mhm.
think that works a little better with the FBI as well. Again, no
Yep.
disrespect to the people that testify before Congress. I feel like our group, with the things and the access that we've had or been able to get, or people approaching us, um, I feel kind of proud of some of the things, the recommendations that we made, and some things that I see happening that, and this is not to blow our own horn. I just think that it's more effective going straight to them. I think with any organization, whether it be the FBI or even a private organization, they're more receptible if you just come directly to them and say, hey, I got this problem. Why don't we get this fixed? Here's what I see. Here's my recommendations. Than going around to Congress, which says, then they come in with the oversight and there's hearings, and to me, I just think it's much more expeditious the way that we're doing it. I would recommend more people doing that. What are your thoughts about how we've been able to play our role in trying to get the FBI back, restore it back to the way it was when we joined?
No, I think that, I think there are appropriate times to do things in different ways, right? So I think we're blessed to have, a contact that we can um, make recommendations through to get to the leadership in the Bureau. And I think it's, we're different levels of experience, different backgrounds, all of us. We bring different skills to the table and different experiences to the table. And I think it's been a good opportunity and good for us. It feels good to be able to help get the Bureau back and, give my 2 cents. Because what's the amazing thing about the Bureau is, where we are geographically and all the violations that we worked, and all of us come to the table having worked a different, I worked criminal, I worked counterintelligence. I did some work. I was the TOC team leader, so I worked with SWAT. I mean, so you are overseas. I was never overseas. I mean, we all bring something different to the table, and we have different experiences. So when we see something that's wrong or that needs to be fixed, it's been great to be able to say, hey, you may want to look at it like this, because when you're on the inside, it's totally different. Your head's down, you're doing your job, and sometimes we might have thought we knew everything. When you're on the outside looking in, um, we bring a whole different perspective to the current day. And I think that our recommendations are different than the people that are inside right now, because we hear and see things out here that they're not hearing and seeing. They're not watching the news and, watching X and other things to stay up with things like we are. They're busy. So no, I think it's been great, and I'm, honored to be able to, like I said, give my 2 cents from my little piece of the pie in the Bureau, and I'm proud to be able to do that. I'd like to see them do something at some point where they have retired agents in general, be contributing. Um, I don't know how that plays out. I've got a lot of ideas, but I hope that one day that will come. I know they've had some talks about it. I've heard from many retired agents that there have been discussions, whether that's regional or per field office. I think we would be an asset to them. We can bring things to the table that maybe take some things off their plate, I should say. So I hope we see something like that down the pike once they have some free time. But the way things are going, I'm not sure. I'm not sure they're going to have any free time.
You have got a lot of things on your plate right now. I know what you've got going on in the background. What came to mind to me is a lot of the people in executive leadership in the FBI right now. When I pull up their bios, they're post 9/11. Uh, I think that there is a benefit when I first got down to Jackson in Mississippi, we reopened the Mississippi burning case. And one of the things that we did is we brought back a retired agent from the 60s,
Mhm.
Jim Ingram. He has since passed away in 2009. But Jim was, he still would never admit to me whether or not Gene Hackman's character was based on him or not. He just would not admit. Uh, but he we couldn't have done that case without him. And I think that there's a perspective that you can bring if one of the things like you said, I would recommend of him bringing back is just to talk about the tempo. What I loved when I got to Washington, D.C. is there were still Hoover agents that were there. So I got to talk to people that actually had to walk across that stage. They did have the towel over to the side to wipe the sweat off before you shook the director's hand. Uh, how intimidating he was in the elevator, him and Tolson in the elevator. I've heard stories about that. But I think one of the things I would like to talk to the agents today, and it's something I said when I was up teaching a couple of years ago up in Fredericksburg to some as a contractor for some FBI agents, was trying to talk to them about the way that we did things on 9/11. I mean, the I almost feel like we accomplished more without so much technology back then. I mean, I don't know if it gives you chills to remember the term rapid start,
Mhm.
which was this 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 kind of man-made computer type thing to get information out. So what ended up happening with us with rapid start and was you'd get some information in, you'd send some people out to act on it right away, and then somebody's writing that up. And then that information, if it affects another field office, it gets faxed out. And then later on, somebody's writing it up and putting it into the electronic case file, and then electronic leads are sent out. So by the time it's all said and done, you may have the same task 4 times sent out. And when you come in and you're working 18-hour days and 7 days a week, and you've got different people coming in and grabbing things out of an inbox. Some people are grabbing a piece of notebook paper that says you need to go talk to this person. The next person's grabbing the rapid start form that says you need to go talk to this person. The next person's grabbing it and grabbing the electronic communication that was typed up to go talk to this person. The next person's grabbing something that came out of the electronic case file that was sent from another office. And then the last person's grabbing something that came across the fax machine to go out and interview. And there were times that we would, after a couple of weeks, we would get to a door to go knock on it, and there'd be a stack of business cards of FBI agents that had been there, knocking on that door to go talk to somebody. And I can remember we were in the early portion of it. I think it was probably a week after we were knocking on a door, and we were probably the fourth or fifth investigative agency, whether it was just FBI, to have been there. And I remember this Middle Eastern person almost bursting into tears, like, "What do you guys want now? It's 1:30 in the morning. You guys back, 'cause it's 24/7 working there." Which office were you in when 9/11 happened?
San Diego.
San Diego.
Mhm.
And were you close to the airport? Do you remember the silence of no planes in the
Oh
air? I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah. Well, that's funny that you say that because so I was on organized crime and we were on a Title III. So our whole squad would, on organized crime, we usually would have one, maybe two really large cases what a lot of the public thinks of as RICO cases. They weren't always RICO, but they were large scale cases. And so the whole squad's dedicated to it. Well, we had a Title III. It was a city council case. These guys were um, taking bribes and to push stuff through the city council. And so we were doing a lot of, 24/7 shifts. And, around the clock, all of us had shifts and we, monitored their activities. And it was a great, great case. But 9/11 happened while we're in a room with headphones on it. This was, back in the day. We still had cassette tapes and, we're typing out everything. So we are in the wire room and when you have a court authorized warrant that a judge signs off on. And a Title III is, as you know, the most intrusive method. So we couldn't leave. We had to stay on that. So all the other agents are out there shagging leads. Shagging leads. I don't know if that term sounds familiar to
Yeah.
you, but we were out there shagging leads, and the other agents were, while we were in this wire room, and we were so frustrated. After about, I don't know, about a week into 9/11, the investigation after 9/11, we basically got the release where they brought other agents in to kind of backfill us. So we were able to get out and help with these leads. I was sent to the airport, and we were tasked with just talking to everyone at the airport. And we had a way to go about doing it. Things would be a little different now, I think, but of course, we were very polite and respectful and professional. But yeah, it was. There weren't many people at the airport. Not a lot of people traveling. Not a lot of planes taking off and landing. You're right. There were some still, and if there was anyone of interest, we were sent to talk to them. So it was. Yeah, it was a very, I mean, I'll just never forget it. I'll never forget being woken up in the morning, because I'm in San Diego. So someone on the East Coast called and woke me up very early and said, you got to turn the television on. And it was just like, wow, our whole world changed, obviously. Um, but to see that, back to your point about the lack of technology back then, isn't it amazing how we still got stuff done? We worked our butts off, with what we had. And it was just raw talent and the desire to, serve our country and to get to the bottom of things. And, we did it. We made it happen. And to me, some of the best memories, not 9/11, but just back in the day when we were old school. I mean, I'm a red pen gal. I mean, I remember when we indexed, I think we talked about this the other day with a red pen, and, and you can explain that if you
Circle,
want.
underline. Well, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Or doing our T&A on those little papers where, there were no, and I had a pager. That was our technology back. Yeah, I mean, we didn't have much, but we did the best with what we had, and we got the job done. And I don't know.
I
It
don't.
makes me proud.
I told them. I said, no disrespect to you younger agents. I don't know if you could have run at the tempo that we ran back then. I mean, it was like a switch went off. I remember being on 66, and I had just left the Pentagon area, probably 20 minutes. I was underneath that bridge 20 minutes before that plane hit. And I get up on 66 and I hear the call come over the radio, the plane's hit the Pentagon. And just everything changed. And of course, I couldn't sleep. I'd been up all night. And by the time I got to the house, they had already texted me and said, come back in at 10:30. You're at the alternate command post at Tyson's Corner, the resident agency there off of Leesburg Pike. And I worked there the first night. The next night I'm driving in and I get a text that says, now come to, downtown WFO. So I got to go down there. Um, it was surreal,
Real. Yep.
trying to deal with that. And I think it was either 28 or 29 days in a row I worked
Mhm.
without taking a day off until I got sick. And I just mentioned to somebody, I said, man, I'm gonna have to take some sick leave or something. What's the policy here? They're like, what do you mean take time off? Have you not had a day off? You're supposed to have taken a day off. And I'm
Mhm.
like, the things have got to get done, but you were so busy and it went by so fast. Um, it was, that, and I think the other surreal time was the DC sniper stuff that went on,
Mhm.
and it seemed like it almost happened, felt like it happened almost right after 9/11. It was so
Yeah.
close,
Yeah.
um, of how quiet things were, how nervous people were, going to the gas pumps and getting back in your car while your gas is pumping. That was a bit tough.
Yeah.
But
Just living life and having to be concerned that, you're getting gas and someone's gonna, try to kill you. Yeah, I was funny. My we had training agents. You remember training agents? I assume they still have those. My training agent was the SWAT team leader. So, here you take this little girl from the South who'd never been in law enforcement before. That was me. And my training agent was a SWAT team leader, but it was awesome. I mean, he sent me out with a fugitive squad, and I learned, what it was like. He taught me proper etiquette on the radio, get on it, get off of it as soon as possible, keep the air clear, everything that you needed to know. I mean, he was great. But I'll never forget. I mean, I sit at my desk, and it wasn't just 9/11. I mean, it was just me. I would sit at my desk and it'd be Friday night, 7 o'clock. And, I mean, I'm working constantly because I just loved every minute of it. And, he told me, Kim, listen, this is going to be here tomorrow. Got to get your rest. You got to get out of here, spend time with your family. And, but I think, outside of the 9/11 timeframes and the snipers, I mean, I think a lot of us just had that, you know, type A personality, but the job was just, it was your life. And yeah, someone that has to tap you on the shoulder now and then to tell you to, get out of here, go get some rest. It's going to be here in the morning, he would say. And
Well,
it always was. He was right.
I, I appreciate you coming on today. Today was just kind of to test out this live stream, and I hope that the people enjoyed kind of hearing some things going on the inside of the FBI. I want them to hear more stories like that, and it's similar to somebody had asked me one time if you could go back in time, is there anything that you would change? And I said, well, the only thing I would do different is I would have more in-depth conversations with my grandparents and my great-grandparents about what was life like then. I hope that I think that's a recommendation we need to keep pushing through our contacts there in and around Cash Patel Circle, which is you've got to have, and it's not just through the Retired Agents Association. That thing's almost as bureaucratic as the FBI. I think you really need to have an avenue for agents that were there through all these transitions now, like 9/11, to have people talk about their experience and what it was like, not just to say, oh, we had it tougher or anything like that, but just
Yeah.
to say, here's the challenges that we have. You're going to have similar large challenges. Um, our challenges were, well, we didn't know there were challenges back then. None of us had cell phones.
Right.
I had a text pager, but I could only respond with certain messages on the text pager going back. But if I needed to call the office, I had to find a payphone. I had to pull over somewhere.
Right. And
And
we had
if I
those
didn't,
little cards, those cards where
yeah,
we
the
had to
little,
punch in the number, which half
yep,
the time didn't work. Yeah.
yep. It was an amazing time, but we still, the basic investigative stuff was still there. The work ethic was there. And the thing that I would ask them to embrace is this time in the FBI, you're going to blink and it's going to go by and you won't know it at the time. Well, I mean, 9/11 we kind of knew was significant, DC sniper, things like that. But you won't, um, you'll look back and one day people are going to ask you about things and you're going to realize that you were involved in some very significant things in this country, not just in the FBI, but in this country. Uh, I mean, I hope that they embrace it like we did. When like you said, when I got there, I was so excited I was like, this is a dream. I'm an FBI agent now. I can remember, you know, I carried my creds around everywhere. I just would constantly look at those things, like, look at this badge, look at these creds. And, I've got this enormous responsibility. And I had some great people around me, great training agents and mentors and stuff. And I think that Patel and Bongino would be remiss to not bring individuals like us or others in to talk about what it was like back then. I would bet you that the majority of the FBI agents in the Bureau right now are post 9/11.
Oh,
I would,
yeah.
I would say the majority.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so,
Absolutely.
well, Kim, is there anything else that you want to disclose to us? You want to talk about what you got going on that's keeping you so busy there in Arizona?
Yeah, yeah. I recently declared I am, as you said before, I ran for Congress last year and it was a great experience. And obviously I didn't prevail, but it was, like I said, wonderful experience, learned a lot. And people were asking, are you going to run again? And, I put some thought into it, but the congressman, he's doing a good job and he's listening to the constituents. So I said, no, I'm going to sit this one out. Well, we have two House seats here in my district. I'm in Legislative District 3, which is the largest district in Arizona. And we have two great reps, Alex Colladin and Joseph Chaflick. And Alex Colladin has decided to run for Secretary of State. So that opens up his seat. So I officially declared a few weeks ago to run for the House here in Arizona. So yeah, I'm just doing there's a lot that goes into running for office, a lot of administrative stuff, as you can imagine, doing all that and getting my website going and other things and starting speaking events starting next week. And I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to it. I don't know if you heard recently on the news, our governor just vetoed a bill that was put before her that got passed. A great bill that the senators put through and passed, and it was to ban the Chinese government from purchasing land near our military base, and she vetoed it. And I was very upset about that, as were most people. But what excites me about that is I worked counterintelligence for half my career. I know that there's not anyone down there that has the background in it that I do. We have a few, Senator Wendy Rogers, she's got an expertise. She was in the military. And I know we have some other military folks, but I worked that threat. And I know inside, I know some, not inside information, but, I know some intimate details about how they operate and what the threat is and why that is so important. 26 other states have done it, and it was really unfortunate that she vetoed it. So that got me excited that I know I have something I can bring to the table that can help benefit Arizonans and the constituents in LD3. And I'm really looking forward to getting through the campaign and winning this race. But there's a long road ahead. We've got a year, so I'm getting an early start, and I'm excited about it. So day by day, one day at a time.
If for those watching the podcast, look for Kim on X. It's still Kim George for AZ, isn't it?
It is.
Look
Yes.
for there. There'll be some information there about her campaign. Anything that you can do to help. If you're in Arizona and you want to volunteer to help, I think you're going to be a force to be reckoned with. You're young enough, a little bit younger than I am, so you got some time. You can still hit that Congress jump there, and I hope that you do that. I'm still I don't know what I'm going to do with mine, but with down here, I'm still in conversations about that. I've made it known I would prefer not to run for something, but if God opens that door, I can't turn it down. Well, Kim, thanks for coming on for us to help us try out this stream right now. We're going to continue to grow this thing. Everybody started off small. I hope that some of the other podcasters out there aren't making fun of us and saying, "Oh, look at this little whatever." Yeah, I'm sure. At some point, Joe Rogan started off and he had 4 followers, and that of course grew pretty quick.
Right.
And who knows? Maybe a while from now, we'll be looking back on this at this great venue that we have. And as I told people last week at the introduction of it with our group, there's going to be times that somebody else is sitting in this seat, even though it's the Blunt Force Conservative podcast. It's just the vehicle for it. If somebody else wants to take the car for a drive, they can take it out there if they've got some things they want to do. And we'll always have it open for you to talk about things going on with your campaign and tapping into your expertise, your knowledge, and your skills and your abilities from being an FBI agent. But thanks again for coming on and doing this favor for me.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, Chris. And I'm going to take you up on that. So
you can have the keys to the car anytime. All right,
I
Kim. Well,
appreciate
thanks a lot. We're gonna let you go now.
Absolutely.
All right, so that's episode 2 of the Blunt Force Conservative podcast. It's kind of done off the cuff. We weren't planning on having one this week, but my brother-in-law was under the weather, and we didn't think it was going to happen. We thought we were going to postpone until next week, but we put this one together at the last minutes. Thanks so much for Kim George coming on and for us to just kind of reminisce about some of the things going on in the FBI. Feel free to hit the chat box down there on YouTube. If you've got some recommendations, some things you want to know more about, that's fine. You can find me on X at BF Conservative, and you can post your questions there, DMs, as long as it's not vulgar or something like that. I typically don't block people unless you step over those lines, you start attacking. And it's pretty evident of what you're doing. I'm either going to mute you or I'm just not going to respond to you. One of the things I've found is that most of the people that are trying to do that tend to have a narcissistic tendency, and they're just looking to get attention. And one of the worst things that you can do for a narcissist is not give them attention. They hate it. So I just kind of ignore it. But again, thank you. We appreciate your time. Hope you enjoy the show. Look forward to future shows. And this is Chris Hinkle, your Blunt Force Conservative, retired FBI agent, father, husband, and soon to be grandfather. And we'll see you next time.